In X3, there is the product category, which is utilized as a means of logically grouping together your products within your database. Common conventions for product categories include everything from grouping based upon raw materials, grouping on products that are purchased and resold, grouping on finished goods that are manufactured, and even finished goods that are lot controlled. Some clients even utilize this product category concept as a means of grouping their products together by product line. Within your product category record, the user is permitted to localize settings by site, and all the values contained within the product category, anything from lot control settings, from location controlled settings into your financial controls, these attributes in part will be defaulted onto the products. So let's start by taking a look at the description tab. Some of the primary fields of consequence on here are going to be your product sequence number. So if the desire is to have X3 automatically number your products for you, one can establish a product sequence, and you can have a unique sequence on a product category by product category basis. There's creation method settings herein. If when a product is created you wish to be able to directly use that in production, or one can set this to a setting of with validation, meaning that another authorized user will subsequently have to flag the product as being active prior to being put into use. Down in our miscellaneous section, we have an ABC classification that we can assign to our products that in part can be utilized for cycle counting purposes. We have a product line settings down here that are utilized in our the product configurator. Over on the right hand side in the manager section, we have access code settings that can be instituted to limit accessibility to these respective products. We have a buyer and planner settings also that can be used as filters in some of the advanced planning features within X3. In the lower right hand corner, we have product statistical groups that can be set. These statistical groups can be utilized for a variety of purposes. One of the more popular purposes of the statistical groups is to categorize your product records such that you can do analytical reporting against that, whether it be inventory reporting or gross profitability reporting. In addition to that, statistical groups can be set up for the purposes of grouping your products for different pricing tiers. Next, over here on our controls tab, up at the top we have a stock management settings. The majority of your products will likely be set up with a manage setting, meaning that the product is recognized for inventory control purposes. There's a potency manage setting in here. If your products may have half-life characteristics or have some type of degradation characteristics to them. Then we also have a not managed setting that can be utilized for setting up miscellaneous products in your system for purchasing or selling purposes. One common example of a product with a not managed setting may include a miscellaneous warehouse supplies product that you can set up. Down in our inventory parameters section, we have a variety of settings within here. Management mode settings that can be utilized again for some of the advanced order planning features within the system to designate this product is going to be ordered based upon the stocking needs, or if the product is to be ordered for fulfillment on a order by order basis. We have a variety of different counting settings in here to designate the nature of the counts that should be instituted against this product. If your product is a raw material, there's material tracking characteristics that can be set, whether or not it's going to be when the product is consumed on your work orders, whether or not it's to be consumed on a back flushing basis or a manual tracking. Then there's also traceability settings in here. If you have some advanced or strict traceability rules for your respective products, maybe in the food and drug industry, these traceability controls can be instituted to help with that upstream and downstream traceability. Down in our quality section, we have X3 allows for one to set up your products for QC controls. So there's changeable control settings, non-controlled settings, non-changeable control in cases whereby the product would need to be pushed through a QC workbench. There's technical sheets that can be established for your products that whereby one is allowed to specify the various questions that need to be asked during the QC process. Then we can have different enforcement rules against that tech sheet in the event that an answer comes back as a non-positive value as to whether or not one would be permitted to change the QC status from Q to A. X3 also allows for expiration control capabilities on the products. There's different packaging settings that can be instituted. Up in the upper right hand corner we have lot management characteristics that the product will in part inherit. In here also there's the capability of doing sublotting, as well as to have to enable X3 to automatically assign lot numbers on your behalf. That would be done by virtue of this lot sequence number. If you have the need to serial control your products, X3 allows for that. There's different serial control features, including a serial assignment just when the inventory is issued from the system. X3 has another setting in here through this received and issued, whereby the serial number is captured on the good when it's introduced into the system. It's tracked through the system with that serial number. Then in part, when it's shipped out, that serial number will also be captured on the stock transactions. And once again, there's a serial counter that we can define to automatically assign those serial numbers. Down in the storage and dedicated locations section, this is where one comes to specify as to whether or not a product is going to be location managed within the warehouse. If one opts to do that, there's a variety of different dedicated locations that can be specified on the product. Default locations for receiving, default locations for stocking, locations for picking, and so forth. And these settings down here can be altered on a product by product category basis. Next, on our units of measure tab, this is where one comes to specify the various units of measure that one is going to stock the goods in, the units of measure that are going to be applicable for weighing purposes and volumetric purposes. In here, there's also default units of measure for purchasing and for selling, as well as for packaging. It should be noted in here that the conversion factors that are contained there over here can be set up as such. So in this particular case, if we purchase the good in cases and we stocked it in each, and there was 12 eaches to a case, this would be your appropriate format for your conversion factor. Next here on our entry flow and issue flow tabs, there are default stock transaction settings in the system through one stock, what's referred to as being the stock management rules. In terms of all the stock movement characteristics for your various stock transactions, including purchase receipts, work order receipts, shipments to customers, miscellaneous receipts and issues. Those default characteristics on the stock management rule in part can be overridden on a product category by product category basis by setting the defaults herein. In addition, on our issue flows tab, there is allocation and inventory issue characteristics that can be set. The concept of allocation in X3 is applicable for one's sales order documents, for one's shipment records, and for one's work order records. And these allocation rules can govern in what order one's available inventory is applied to orders, these types of documents. Okay, so one in part could drill in here to see the respective characteristics of these allocation rules, and we have different settings in here. Inventory allocations on a FIFO basis, on a first to expire, first out basis, a LIFO basis, and so forth. Then some more advanced settings can be instituted here if it's so desired that inventory should be allocated of only a particular quality control status, if inventory should be sought after initially in a particular location within the warehouse, and so forth. In here on the issue rule, we have this concept of a global allocation. There are two primary allocation methods within X3. We have the concept of a global allocation, which is also referred to as a warehouse location, whereby when demand is input into the system, inventory is just allocated on a global basis and not detailed to the specific lot or the specific location from which the goods should be allocated. That methodology would be referred to as what we call a detailed allocation. Next, on our accounts and cost tab, the accounting code is the characteristic within X3 that specifies all the respective general ledger accounts that will be associated with the stock movement and the sales of this particular product category. There's a variety of different tax control levels that can be established on the product. So by virtue of these tax settings, coupled with the tax settings that are found on our customer file, that will govern as to whether or not there's sales tax payable that's going to be of consequence to us on our sales. If the product is a fixed asset record, this flag here can be set. Down in our dimensions section, this also has tie-ins to our analytic accounting within X3. So during the course of the implementation cycle, determinations will be made in relationship to whether or not there's any detailed analytical reporting in the ledger that should be driven by the product characteristics. Common dimensional characteristics may be to establish a product line dimension type and assign that to the product. So in part, whenever revenues are realized or whenever cost of goods sold charges are realized against the sale of this product, those dimension settings can be passed along to our general ledger details. Next, over here on our costing tab, we have a valuation method setting. So this valuation method setting, there's a variety of different options within X3, including standard costing, average unit costing, average lot costing, FIFO costing would be the most common examples. So these valuation methods are going to govern how the our perpetual inventory will be valued. These settings will govern how the valuations that will be referenced when the postings are conducted for our stock transactions. Down in this group here also we have a cost group settings from which this local menu here can be updated if there's particular groupings of our raw materials that we wish to institute. This cost group can be utilized for that purpose. In X3, through our standard costs, we also have the concept of revised costs, budgeted cost, and simulated cost, which can be used for a variety of different analytical purposes. These settings in here of calculated versus entered speak in terms of whether or not the expectation is the standard cost or revised cost should be updated automatically through the cost calculation features within X3, or in the cases of raw materials, typically one would expect this to be set to entered, whereby the expectation is the respective standard cost will be manually entered into the system by the user. By way of this overhead cost section, X3 also allows for the establishment of overhead codes that can be associated with our finished goods or our raw materials, such that whenever a particular quantity or whenever a particular valuation of inventory is received or issued from the system, there will be an overhead markup associated with that. Next, on our purchasing sales tab, over here in our purchasing section, if for those products that are flagged as being purchasable, back here on our description tab through this bought setting right here, one would be permitted to establish firm horizons and planning horizons, which have play-in our advanced order planning features within X3, the MRP features or the MPS features. The firm horizon has play-in in terms of how far out into the future those planning tools will take a look at your firm demand, whereby the planning horizon speaks to the kind of soft demand in the system, which is loaded through our demand forecasts. We have a delivery tolerance setting here on the purchasing tab, whereby one could come in and make a specification of, say, for instance, like 90%, whereby the idea would be is on a particular purchase order, if you received 90 out of 100 units that were ordered, that purchase order would automatically flag itself as being closed, as opposed to the user having to manually do so. Settings down here also as to whether or not the product is to be received in through a PO, and as to whether or not it's mandatory that a PO request be instituted. Over here on our sales tab, we have normal settings, bill of material settings, and kit settings. The latter two options could be used in instances whereby you have sales kits that are sold, whereby one product corresponds to the sale of 2, 3, 4 different items. Delivery tolerance here on the sales end follows the same principle as it does in purchasing, insofar as if you ship a certain percentage of the total order, that order will automatically close itself. We have certain minimum quantities and maximum quantities on the sale of the product, which would be enforced at the time of sales order entry. down here as to whether or not a loan would be authorized for the product. Then we also have these direct order characteristics. So in the event that maybe this is a product that you don't warehouse directly, but rather you have a vendor that will direct ship the goods on your behalf to your customers, this direct order setting would be at play there. Okay, then finally over here on the planning tab, again we have this firm horizon and the demand horizon concepts. Okay, down in our manufacturing section here, we have release of shortage flag that can be set if in the event that we wish to be able to release a work order even if this particular raw material component is not available. This automatic close characteristics, again, much like that of the purchasing on the sales section, in the event that we manufacture so much of this product, or excuse me, if we consume so much of this product on our work order, we can automatically close that line. Over here in our reordering section, we can choose from a variety of different advanced planning rules within X3, from material requirements planning, the master production scheduling, the reorder point methodology, or we can do our reordering just based upon a certain calendar period increment. These reordering policies here have tie-in in relationship to when the advanced planning features in the system are utilized. How is it that the system will present to you the order suggestions? If it's just to be presented as one lump sum, or if it's to be broken out into certain allotments, these reordering policies have tie-in into that. Your suggestion type setting here speaks in terms of whether or not the respective suggestions should come in the form of a work order suggestion. In the cases for those purchase products, this could be set to a purchase order suggestion, or if you operate within a multiple site organization, it could come in the form of a transfer suggestion. Then finally, here in the lower right hand corner, we have safety stock levels that we can set. We can have reorder point quantity thresholds that we can set, the maximum stock that we wish to have on hand of the product. Then we have these EOQ, or the economic order quantity setting, which is more so a representation of the minimum batch size that the advanced order planning tools would suggest. Then we have our technical lot settings, which is a representation of the standard batch size that we order or we make the goods over and above the EOQ. Okay. And those are the primary characteristics of the product category.